stories like crazy, because everyone has mental health and everyone has a story, and sometimes they're crazy. Join Lori Lane Murphy and me, Adriana Prosser, as we talk about dealing with, struggling with, and managing mental health with storytellers who want to share their true life story. Get in the conversation with us and talk to us on Facebook and Twitter, and subscribe on SoundCloud and iTunes. Now, let's smash some stigma. Rico is a Toronto storyteller and has been part of the scene for many years. His story is about the caregiver side to someone going through crisis. Here, let's listen.
I was on the elevator at the Courtyard Marriott on Yonge and Maitland. And I was there with 5 police officers and 2 paramedics and a stretcher. And we were going up to get William. And the manager of the hotel was there too because he had the master key. About maybe 3 or 4 hours before that, he had been officially declared a missing person. I had reported him at about 7 o'clock at night, and they told me I had to wait for 2 hours to make it official. Now it's about 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning, and I found him. I found him after going through the the phone book, and I had phoned before that. Every hospital I had gone to, the 999 Queen Street when I used to be there. It's not there anymore, so Tim Hortons there, in a bank. Of course they said to me, well, even if he was here, we cannot tell you that he's here. I even said, please, if he happens to be here, somebody named like him, this is my number and give it to them. Well, we cannot even do that. And I was in complete distress. I had a crew of friends going to places that he used to go, and I had a crew of friends even going to the subway, and I went to the lake, thinking that he could have gone to any of those places. Maybe he could be still around there. And what had happened is that he, for the last couple of weeks, he had been weaning himself off Paxil, and he hadn't told me. And he was doing it not with a regular doctor, but a regular doctor was on holiday. He was doing it with a replacement doctor that I don't think knew much about anything about these medications. And what we found out later, if you're going to get off Paxil because it has a short shelf life, you should maybe go on Prozac so that the crash is not as dramatic. And it was dramatic. That very morning, we had gone, after a horrible weekend, we had gone to see our family doctor, the guy that was replacing our family doctor actually, and he said, it's time that you go to the hospital. So I took him to the hospital. I took him to St. Mike's. He says the clinic that we go to is associated with St. Mike's, and we told them what was happening, and they said, oh yeah, we'll admit you. And so they did triage, and they put us in the emergency area, and some doctor came and asked him a bunch of questions. And he was uncomfortable with the questions, but I helped him through getting them out and answered. And maybe 15, 20 minutes later, this intern came in, and he started asking the same questions. And I tried to signal to him to not do that because William was getting obviously aggravated. And he looked at me and he said, if you don't tell this idiot to shut the fuck up, I'm leaving. So he said, well, I'm a doctor, you can't call me that. And I said, can you just step outside with me for a second, please? And he went outside, and he said, well, I have to ask these questions. And I said, they've been asked. Look at the chart. I don't know. We'll talk to the main doctor. He's in distress. He's not very logical right now. Please leave. And he said no. He proceeded to ask the questions. He walked back in, and William got up and started to put his shoes on to leave. And I pleaded and asked him not to, and I asked this intern to please stop him and see if he could call security, and they said, well, he wants to leave, he can leave. So he walked out of the hospital, and I ran after him, and he told me not to follow him. So he ended up coming home, and so he went to to rest. He went to bed, and at about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, he told me that maybe he will do it on his own, and if I can go get some Prozac for him at the pharmacy, which I did with some trepidation because I had been on guard. But I thought, okay, this is working out. He's coming to his senses in some way, and so that's what I had done. I left the house, and when I came back with the medication, he was gone. So there's no note or there's nothing. He wasn't answering his cell phone, and that's where I went into kind of action, and we searched, but and then we reported him. But then the only thing left for me at 2 o'clock in the morning was to get on the phone and phone every hospital and every hotel in town, and I did. And I must have called probably 50 hotels, including downtown hotels, airport hotels, Scarborough, Tobico, whatever. And I think that was one of the last ones left on the list. And I found him. They said, "Oh yeah, he's a guest of ours tonight." And that's when I called the police, and we all showed up. Now, the manager opened the door of the room, and there's William resting in bed, sleep, and they wake him up, and the police come in, and everybody comes in, and they ask me, "Hey, how you doing?" He goes, "I'm fine," he says. And I kept saying to them, "He's not fine. He's not fine." And said, "So what happened?" He goes, "Why are you guys here?" And, "Well, you were missing, and you left the house." And he said, "Oh, it was a domestic," he said. And I said, "That's not true. I told you what it was." And he said, no, I'm fine. And they asked me to step outside because they needed to talk to him. And they all came out, and he said, "He's fine. If you're having some domestic problem, you need to sort it out." And they left me alone with him in the room. And he said, "If you don't leave, I'm leaving." So I left, and I went to the lobby, and I stayed there. And then the manager of the hotel came in and said, "If you don't leave, I'm going to call the police and tell them you're loitering." And I said, at this point, I'm in hell. And I'd rather be taken to jail than having to be responsible. Because I'm tired of being responsible. I've been responsible all this time, and this is what happened. And, obviously nobody believes me. And so, call the police. Maybe they'll apprehend me. Being in jail will probably be a blessing. And he left, and I followed him, and I said, "If something happens here tonight, that he jumps out of the window or does something dramatic, I'm holding you responsible." And I don't know how responsible he would have been, but I was in such distress and anger that's what came out of my mouth. And I said, "You can fucking call the police and get them to get me out of here, because probably being in jail will be probably a safe place for me at this point." And he didn't, and I stayed and paid vigil all night until about 11 o'clock in the morning when William checked himself out. And he walked out, and I said hi to him again. He walked past me. He wouldn't say anything, and I had valet parking. And I gave them my valet parking ticket, and they went to get the car from wherever they had parked it. And I followed him, and he took the streetcar, and I followed the streetcar, and he went home. And that night, I talked to him again, and it was evening, and he spent about an hour in the fetal position, in the shower, but then I found him in a fetal position. And then I said, "Let me call the ambulance, let's go to the hospital." And he agreed, but then he ran to the kitchen to try to get a knife. And I had hidden all the knives, because that's what they told me to do. And he couldn't find anything to hurt himself with. And while I was talking to the ambulance, I mentioned that to them, and they said they had sent somebody immediately, and they came, and I could see them, but they wouldn't come into the house, because they said that he potentially had a knife. And I said, "No, he doesn't have a knife." And they said they had to wait for the police to show up for security. And I thought, some police officers are trained on mental health issues, many are not, and I cannot afford to have him killed just because he is having a problem with mental health issues. And I had seen enough of that happen, so I decided that I didn't want them anymore. And I called them and I said, "You can leave." "Well, no, we won't." And I said, no, you're of no help. And so I convinced William to get in the car with me and to drive with me rather than go in the ambulance. And they phoned me, and I said, don't worry, I am not needing your services anymore. And they said, where are you going? And we know your car, and we're going to stop you. And I said, no, you won't. And so I evaded. I went through some side roads, and I made it to St. Mike's. And I virtually just abandoned the car wherever it was. I didn't care if I got a ticket. I got William in to St. Mike's that night. And they gave him something that made him feel a little bit better. And he thanked me for it, and I went home.
Wow. So frustrating. And terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And heartbreaking. Right? This is your husband.
Yes.
This is who you both pledged to look after one another. And that feeling of, I don't know, I got goosebumps that when you said the word vigil, staying vigil, that it didn't matter. I mean, I'm sure it hurt for him to say get out and all of that kind of stuff, but to somewhere inside you say, I can't leave this man.
No.
And not just responsibility, but love and caring and compassion and knowing that he wasn't in his right mind. And to be able, like you said, frustrating.
That's all I hear in this story.
Right.
It's just how frustrating it is to be the person who wants to give care, who wants to be the caregiver, and to be active and not passively caregiving, right? And my brother died by suicide, and the thing that was the most frustrating for me and my family is that because he was of age, they never notified of his first attempt. And it's like, how can we be good caregivers if we can't be in the room, if we can't be there? Like them saying, you need to leave the room, we need to talk to him. No.
Yeah.
No. I am family. I am we are equals in this room. Like we are together. It's so frustrating that not only like the vows of marriage that you have to be pushed out, but even freaking fucking family gets pushed out of the room too. And it's so frustrating when you just want to be there. You want to be there for them.
And like you said about training, this opens a whole other conversation around training, but they're also sending you out of the room and, let's face it, talking to a man who's not in his head. So they're not getting what they need from him. And so therefore, your thoughts and opinions are secondary because here's a grown man, fair, but he's sick.
Yes.
How do you scream from the rooftops? You know, like you said too in your story, no one's believing me.
Yeah.
So what the heck at this point?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That I've told this story a few times, and it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Hearing myself telling it, reliving those moments, because this happened in 2003, and it's 14 years ago, and I'm still raw.
Yeah, I bet.
It's still, I live every second of it vividly.
Can I ask you, and you certainly don't have to answer, but I like to ask these things. Do you feel any anger still? Like or is it more? Because I'm speaking also as someone who lives with someone who attempted suicide 8 years ago, and I still have moments, and I found him, so I have those flashes of actual rage against this person who was ill.
Yeah.
You know, so I often wonder about that, and I don't know. It just sounds to me like you were banging your head against the wall for so long.
Yeah, I do feel that. I try to suppress it because I feel guilty about it.
Sure.
I feel guilty about feeling angry.
I know.
Because you're not dealing with somebody who, that people say, like William says, sometimes when I have all my marbles, right? It makes me laugh with that expression, right?
But he's right.
But yeah, and so I feel, but it's something that just comes naturally, right? It just comes from here, and it's the frustration, the anger, the the thing that's the worst for me is revisiting that moment when I came back from the pharmacy with the medication. I thought it was gonna make things a little bit better, and going upstairs with a glass of water and the pills in my hand, and going into that room, and he wasn't there, and I thought, oh, did I miss him in the bathroom? I mean, we lived in a 2-floor apartment. That's weird. And I went and I called his name, and he wasn't there, and I thought, does he come to, because there was another bedroom, and I went into the bedroom, and I looked everywhere. I'm silly. I even looked. I looked in the shower. I looked. We had this little closet between 2 rooms that connected each other, and so I called my clue passage. And I went in there. Maybe he went in there and sat, and he needed. So I was I went down to, there was a laundry room in the basement. I went looking there, thinking, and then, but I was kidding myself.
He couldn't have left.
No.
Because that's not the way the story goes.
Yeah.
The story is you come in and you save the day by being this active caregiver who actively loves their partner.
Yeah.
And he left. Like, it's like a scene from a freaking movie. It's crazy.
It is.
Because it's so heart-wrenching, and like that climax.
I can see you, Rico. Like,
right?
Yeah.
Like little Ralphie from The Simpsons. Where
Yes.
it's like, what? Right? Like, you can actively see the heart break.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there's this moment of, no, that's not how this happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll look in the drawers if I have to.
Exactly.
Oh, I know.
Right?
I felt that kid. I said,
Yeah.
and then I asked him what happened, and he said to me, I was being a burden to you.
Oh.
And I just didn't want to be a burden. I left just so that you could get some sleep. And I thought, oh my God.
Yeah, because you're going to curl up in bed now with a book.
Yeah. Oh, you could have said, I got out for a walk. I would still be nervous, but it would have been a little bit better.
I still don't understand why, because that narrative, like that story of, oh, I felt like I was being a burden, I'll just remove myself from the equation, is so common.
Yeah.
And yet I don't understand that perspective. Like, I don't understand how, like, why do people think this? Like, at what point do they think, if I just go missing and or remove myself from the daily occurrence, that this will make it better? Like, I don't even know how to phrase the question, because I just don't understand.
Well, it's, how could you not know? Because I said this to my husband. How could you not know how important you are?
Yes, that's
How
it.
could you not know this? And he said to me, I didn't. You're not thinking clearly. All you're thinking about is personal pain. And in William's case, and with my husband was very similar, is I will remove myself because I love you so much. I don't want you to have to put up with my shit. They don't think about how devastating it is to be without them.
Yeah. They just can't see that.
No, and they can't. And that's because I can remember that actual question coming out of my mouth when he was in the hospital. How could you not know? Smack. Like, how could you, like, don't do that again or I'll kill you. Right? But and all I get, and I'm sure you've got from William over the years, is I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last year I told this story at your event.
Yes.
And I think I remember ending it with something of the sort of, I'm looking forward not to being in hell ever again.
Yes.
But somehow I feel that I will be there, and I hope not. I think that was sort of like along the lines of that. And not long after that, July 22nd or 24th or something like that. William had a nervous breakdown. It was about a month later. And he's been in that situation. He had to quit work, and he's been in that kind of situation. Getting a little bit better, I would say.
Is he accepting the help?
Yes,
now?
yes.
Yeah.
It's a solid 4, but it was we didn't go that far as disappearance, but we didn't go that far as attempting. But certainly ideation and very long bouts of like withdrawal, sleeping a lot, not not wanting to get help, and I ended up finding a psychiatrist that he had stopped seeing 2011 because he felt so much better and he was doing okay. And they told us he had retired, and he went through the whole CAMH thing, and some of those people were not that great.
Oh dear.
Some were good, but some people were not great, and I know that he wasn't consistent with some of the appointments and that kind of stuff, but I also didn't believe that medication they gave him. I think they gave him Effexor, made him extremely sick, and I was there. He was heaving next to me, and they said to him, "Oh, that must have been food poison." They completely invalidated, and I called a social worker and I said, "I know you're not. I'm nobody, right? And you're not. He's told you that I exist, and I exist, and but I'm calling to tell you what's going on, and that for those doctors not to or not to believe him that this happened, and to tell him that, and at least that's the part of the story I'm hearing. It's pretty insane.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's more insane than what he's going through.
It's true. Some of the processes in the system and all of that kind of stuff is, as Adri says, it's crazy. It's and it certainly makes it adds additional unnecessary layers and trauma to the people trying to give care. Like you're not upset enough already. I'm very happy though to hear that he's coming toward you. He's coming toward help.
It's been much better, and he's much more social in the last few months. He's gotten more social. I mean, I would say he's been a solid 4 out of 10.
Okay.
Solid.
But
some guys going to 3, but I don't think he. Maybe I'm being conservative. But I'm not sure if he reached 5, but maybe I'm being not so generous. It was my birthday not long ago. He did come and saw the family, and they saw the family for a very long time. We hadn't seen them, and
that's good. That
was good. Yeah. And we've had friends come over, and so which is great. And family of his have been able to come, and but it's just been difficult, and also there's other issues going on. Physical issues that precipitated maybe this breakdown. He's a pro builder. He's built building shoes for years, and his arms are giving up on him, and his also, and this contributed to
that would be also frustrating.
To some like self-worth and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But so it's so here I am caregiving, and it's like I right now I'm going between my mom, who has dementia, and him who has depression, and I've been in between the hard rock of dementia and the hard place of depression.
And you deal with teenagers.
And I know.
I hope you have a good self-care regime.
Well, I try to. I do go to the YMCA, and I exercise, and I watch Family Feud sometimes. When I go earlier in the evenings, I was watching a little bit too much of CNN while I was working out. Don Lemon, he's great. I love him. But there's too much Donald Trump, so I stopped watching now.
Oh, yeah.
I watch hockey now. And basketball.
Well,
later.
we really appreciate you sharing the story, because I think it's important for our listeners to hear a caregiver's point of view.
Yes, definitely.
Because we often share stories of personal experiences, and it's nice is not the right word, but I'm going to use it anyway. It's nice to hear from that perspective, because you're still together.
Yeah.
like love is strong.
Yeah.
You're still together. But that doesn't negate the fact that it's frigging exhausting.
Oh, it's hard.
And it takes a toll.
Yes.
And you have to, like Adri said, you have to, self-care is almost even more important sometimes for self-care than anybody else, because you're doing it on your own. You see, William's getting help.
Yeah.
Right? You have to now figure out what help works for you.
Yeah. Yes, true.
So, thank you very much.
Yeah. No, it's yeah, you're right. Self-care is important. Talking. And you know, the most important thing that's happened is that this time is because he knows I've been talking about it. He knows I did the show last year, and he said, I don't care who you tell. And I said, you know what, this is important for me because I need to break the stigma because I can't do this on my own.
Good. And we thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Stigma Warriors!
Thanks for listening. If you want to join the conversation, and we hope you do, come find us on Twitter and Facebook. And you can subscribe to us on iTunes and SoundCloud. That's it, Stigma Fighters. And remember, your story isn't over yet, and we want to hear it.